What's up, bookworms? This is Megan coming at you with another Cantina conversation. Today we're talking with Sariah Wilson. We're talking about her book, A Tribute of Fire. That book is available now. So exciting. I loved A Tribute of Fire. I've read Sariah Wilson's work before, and she's usually doing rom-com. This was her first romantasy, and it was such a good book. I recommend it to people who are into the romantasy genre. And it was so fun to nerd out with her about romantasy in general and just her writing process and all that good stuff. And without further ado, here is Sariah. So today we've got Sariah Wilson. We're talking about A Tribute of Fire. That book is available now. Sariah, thank you so much for joining me today. I finished this book so long ago. I just remembered I really enjoyed it, and I was rooting for Leah or Leah, however you need to pronounce
Leah,
her name.
yeah.
I was rooting for it, and it was just all those little Easter eggs, and of course the cliffhanger pissed me off. But how it was meant to, I imagine.
Yes,
I'm excited to chat a little bit more today.
I'm excited to be here. Yeah, I'd love to hear what you thought about the book, but yeah, if you liked it, that's awesome. So that makes me happy.
Yeah, absolutely. So to get started, can you provide a summary of the book just in case people haven't picked it up yet?
Yeah, it's a princess from a dying desert nation is looking for a relic to save her country, and she has to enter a death race, and she bribes her way in. And the problem is that her sister also gets chosen, and then she's got an annoying sailor who is from the enemy's territory that is making her life difficult, and so just it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of action, adventure, and romance, and I really enjoyed doing it.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll get into it. I might jump all over the place because I am familiar with your previous work. I remember one of the books I did of because you've got a good handful of published works out there already. I remember reading The Chemistry of Love, I think it was, and I really enjoyed that. That was super cute, a little steamy, little tidbits of steaminess in there, but very PG-13, I would say.
Yeah.
And so I want to dig into that, your background, and because this is your first fantasy, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So how I want to is in approaching different switching genres, and did you approach it a different way? Any big lessons learned, stuff like that?
It was really interesting to do because whenever I would do like a podcast or an interview like this, people would say, if you weren't writing romance, what genre would you write in? And I was like, fantasy, not even a question. Growing up, my dad loved fantasy books, and that's what we had in our house. And my mom was the Harlequin reader who used to have those truckloads every month, those prescriptions that she had. So that's what I grew up on. As I got older, I was like looking for the romance and stuff, and it bothered me when there wasn't any. So I really gravitated towards writing romance, and I liked writing rom-coms because that's what I like to read. I like books that make me laugh, that I think are clever, are very sweet and romantic. And then with writing this fantasy book, I think big props to Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros for forging this path that we could have for romantasy because it's like it just combines the stuff I love most when I get to write, and it's just so much fun. So the reason I did it was we had a family emergency and medical needs that we had, and insurance wouldn't cover them. And it
Mm,
was going to be like we had to be done, and it was like this massive amount. We had to take a second out on our house to pay
no,
the
man,
bills.
that's
And
rough.
yeah, we were very stressed. And my husband's, what are we going to do? I said, I'll write a book. And he said, I love you and I support you, but that's not going to cover it. I know what you get paid. That's not going to work. And so I had wanted to write this book for a long time. I was actually doing research for one of my rom coms, and I wanted to make sure that I was using a phrase about Cassandra from Greek mythology correctly. So I went to Wikipedia, I looked it up, and I just have to read about her because that's what I do. I have to finish the whole entry. And it talked about how she was taken and assaulted by Ajax the Lesser from Locris. And Athena, he did it in Athena's temple and violated her temple. And she was furious, and she told the Greeks, I want you to punish him. And the Greeks were like, he's allowed to do that. Why are you upset? And that's why she blew everybody off course. She destroyed ships. Ajax ended up getting his in the middle of the ocean. But it said as recompense, Locris had to send two maidens to Troy every year to pay back what they had taken. And it said, but only if they made it there alive. I'm like, why wouldn't they make it there alive? What's that about? And so I had to go
Yeah.
research, and I'm like, this is a real thing. Like the Locrian maidens were a real thing. Like we have all this historical evidence of it, but it's not a topic that's very well covered. I had a really hard time finding information about it, and historians are arguing about what's true, what's not. So it was just kind of me taking my own stuff and making it. But anyways, long point for that was that I wanted to try romantasy and see how it would do. And this book it didn't even feel like work. Because when I'm writing a
That's
rom
awesome.
com, it's like people don't tell you this. You think once you get published, that's it, you've done it, right? Like you've made it, you're good. And they don't tell you how hard it is to stay in
Yeah.
and keep getting contracts. And then when you've written, I have 25 rom coms, nobody tells you what happens when you start repeating jokes or doing character arcs you've already done or having a character you've already had before and you've already done this plot. So it makes it much more difficult. And I feel my rom coms feel more like work, like I'm structuring it a specific way and I'm looking at all these different things. This was just me sitting down and writing. And I think I did 159,000 words. I'm going to say 39 days, I think, on that one.
Yeah,
Um,
wow.
so
That's crazy.
it just came out so fast and it didn't even feel like work. And I am not a plotter at all. This is just total pantsing. So having a general idea of where I'm going and then hoping at the end of each chapter I'll have the idea for the next chapter. But yeah, so that's why I switched and we ended up selling the book in a preempt and the first payment I got paid off the rest of the second
That's
mortgage. So
amazing.
it was incredible, just totally like miraculous. But yeah, so this book is very special to me for that reason.
Oh, I love that. That's like the best arc in it itself, like the best story in Happily Ever After, where it's just, yeah, you were faced with a horrible, and this kind of stuff can happen to anybody, any like
Yeah.
medical emergency where it's just so expensive, stupidly, ridiculously, and insurance is like not being whatever for whatever reason. It wasn't helping you out. And then you had to figure something out. But luckily you're so talented and you were
Thank
able
you.
to like, okay, this has been in the back of my brain. This is like my brainchild. I'm going to bring it to the world. And it ended up just doing so well. Cause I can't imagine you being like, okay, you doing it. And then it just doesn't do that well. And then you're like, shit, what am I
Wouldn't
going
that have been the
to
worst?
do?
Oh, and I
Yeah.
worked hard on this one. I am not an author who enjoys promotion. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at marketing. I keep taking the classes. It's just beyond me. But this one, oh my gosh, like I pounded the pavement. I think I had by the end 2,000 people who agreed to review it. But that's the people that responded and said yes. There were, I think I figured out,
Yeah.
I contacted like, I was just cold DMing people.
Yeah.
I think it was like 5 or 6 thousand people, but like for 2 months, that's all I did was look up people. And because there's no list of who reviews Romantasy, so you have to go out and find
Yeah.
it on Instagram, and then who else do they follow? Is this person similar? So it's a lot of work.
Exactly. I think you work with K Publicity, and that's how I forget who it was,
It
or no,
was
maybe it was
it was
an
Angela.
individual person.
Yeah,
Yeah, yes, yes, because I knew Angela from K Publicity. I think then she went to
yeah,
do her own thing. So
yeah,
she kept me as like one of her contacts for doing stuff like this, which
yeah,
I'm like, yeah, absolutely. If I could squeeze it in my existing reading schedule, because like I no, I'm all about that because I totally sympathize with that. Other authors are like, that's what you do. That you bring your words to the world. You bring your what you're focused on. But then, yeah, like indie authors, they have to do it and they hate it. They hate, okay, who do I, because it is a
yeah,
lot of work to like make sure that your title is being exposed or just out in the world and they're getting eyes on it. And then if you want other people to do it, you want to hire, even that could be tricky to find, right? Find people who have those contacts and who have those channels of communication where they can reach out to multiple people for
yeah,
you. No, so I totally appreciate that struggle. I sympathize with it because you're not alone. There are multiple, like a lot of authors I've spoken to are the same. It's just so funny because it's, yeah, like you're writers. I don't want to like overgeneralize, but writers are kind of like, they're just in there. That's where the magic comes. But actually, opening themselves up to people and having to do the work to drive the work out, like, is awesome.
yeah,
Please read it and write about it and share it. That's what I'm saying though. I totally get it. And I'm really glad I had the opportunity that Angela reached out to me about it because I really did enjoy it. And it was like, and I always love authors who just take the leap and switch genres like that because it's true, romanticy is just skyrocketed and there's a reason for it because it's
yeah,
okay, people love romance, we eat that shit up, and any level of into on the intimacy spectrum. Some people don't like closed door or don't like open door. Some people love open door. It's like there's a whole range and whatever you want, whatever you like, it's fine. Just find your thing. But like I could totally appreciate for personally, I'm like, yeah, I like fantasy. I like stepping into a world and stepping into not just the world building, but like the politics of it. And there's just like how many different ways that someone can explore or apply the parallels of what we see and apply that to just different world that they brought up in their head. But also I thought it was so cool that you borrowed from mythology And it was such an I thought it was such an interesting thing that you borrowed from because I haven't heard of it. I'm not
Nobody
like into
has.
deep into mythology, but I haven't come across that before. And I'm like, of course historians would like doubt if it was really true, but like us women were like, oh yeah, that probably did actually happen.
Yeah, we know it did. The only thing
Yeah.
they argue about is were they actually hunted and killed, or is this like a scapegoat, more symbolic, and they weren't harmed and they got to the temple alive?
Oh,
So that's what they argue. They know it happened, but I
yeah.
tended to side with the scholar who was like, no, they were killed, which is why they had to send two every year. And I'm like, yeah, that makes more sense to me. And they stopped
Yeah.
sending him for a while. That actually happened as well. And they got visited by a plague, and an oracle told them you have to keep sending the maidens. So again, if you don't want to send them, there's a reason you don't want to send them because they're being killed. Yeah, I just thought
Yeah.
that's such a, and I am a huge Greek mythology nerd, and I had never heard of it. So it's just this really
That's wild.
obscure, cool ritual thing that it was a lot of fun to write about and imagine and make up.
Yeah. Yeah, like just take liberties with it and
Which is why I didn't want to
yeah.
write historical fiction. I wanted to write what I wanted to write. I wanted to have. I don't like where I said it was about 100 BC, and I don't like the clothes that women wore then. And I'm like, I can make up whatever clothes I want. I don't
Yep.
have to put them in
Yep.
these terrible styles. So that was fun. But I think too one of the reasons for me that I love fantasy and romance so much is growing up I read a lot of fantasy, and it was a really male dominated field back then, and I hated how people fell in love. It was like you're hot, I'm
Mm,
hot, and now we're together. I'm like, no, wait, where's all the in between stuff? So I think what's so great about this is it's giving people what they what they're looking for. 'Cause with a fantasy book, you can have real enemies to lovers. Because I have written enemies to lovers in a rom com, and it is not easy because they can't kill each other. They can't. It's very different in contemporary modern day. You don't want him being toxic and abusive. You don't like it, but you put him in a fantasy world, and they can try to kill each other, and they can't. And it's a lot more fun for me because I love the true enemies to lovers. That's so much fun in fantasy to do. But I think women are responding to it, like you said, because they're looking for that escape. They're looking for diving into something that's not familiar, and it just takes them away to some place, while still giving them that romance in the way that they like.
yeah, I think once yeah, to speak on that, I didn't step into the Sarah J. Maas the Moss first until after I had already read a couple romantasy titles. And then getting into Bookstagram and all that, I was just like, "Okay, I feel like I'm missing out on this pop culture movement. I wanna be in on it. I wanna be in on the whatever cult,
Yeah,
the fandom." And my one of my friends, she's a very much a the Throne of Glass series, that was one of the only series that she immediately like once like she followed it as the books were being released, and she like immediately started back at number 1 when she was like finished with number 4 or 5 or whatever. And so I was just like, okay, I'm doing it. I asked her, I was like, okay, what do I start off with first if I'm ready to enter the Moss first? And she's Throne of Glass. And I was like, really? Everybody's all obsessed with like Akatard. She's It's all because of Rice Sand, which she's fantastic, but you got to start with so I was like, okay, I'm so glad I did because there is something to be said about why stuff like that's so popular. And it just and speaking on the fan art too, I love the fan art that sometimes you post on Leah and Jason because it's like you picture it in your head, but of course, like we that's another thing we eat up. Like we just love seeing it in action and love those like little steamy moments. But even the not steamy moments, we love seeing the characters in action, and it's putting the okay how I imagine them in my head there. Now it's here. So now it's anything I didn't catch or anything I was wrong about. It was like, okay, no, I got it. I got it. So it's fun. I appreciate the Bookstagram community in that way and how it's just like a collective, like, yeah, it's like it's a community where we can all we're all on this we're not all on the same page, but we've all read the same material. And so it's like cool to just see how people go feral for some of it
yeah,
and how far people take it and stuff like that. But no, yeah, 100%. I definitely agree that it's just something about it, and that's why it's just so skyrocketed so much. And like exactly how you said. So like whenever I found that's like probably what because I'll read fantasy without romance. I think the fantasy that comes to mind when you mentioned earlier or fantasy written by men, the things that come to mind are George R. Martin and Brandon Sanderson. And I'm one of those people who read the books before the show came out, and I'm waiting for the next one. And as everybody else is, if it's ever going to happen, it's crazy how different they both are. Because
yeah.
I read Sanderson before 10 years ago, and then now like he's gotten so big and he's created his own book verse universe. And I'm actually like I don't know if you've heard of the Stormlight
Mhm.
archive, the
Yeah.
pronunciation. So I'm on book 4 finally, and then because I'm listening to the audiobooks, I'm like they're like I was my cousin, it was funny because he was, like, bugging me to start it. Like, "Okay," and then I think I was, like, drunk texting him, and then I was just like, "Fine," and I got the audiobook, and I was like, "Steven, the first audiobook is 45 hours long."
Yeah, that's about right.
It's a lot, yeah, and then so I told him, I was like, if I'm giving you hours of my time to catch up with your reading material so that you have conversation, then you gotta choose. And I told him, choose between Throne of Glass or Fourth Wing to start. And then he chose Fourth Wing because they got a television show coming out. So
Yeah.
he wanted to like hop on that. And it's really funny to like get his opinions on that and everything. But so yeah, so now I'm like finally on the fourth one and I've surpassed him. So it's just funny because I just eat books. I eat books up, and so I'm like, just so you know, like I'm probably gonna surpass your progress because he gets the physical books, and I'm just like putting the audiobook on when I'm like in the car, when I'm doing chores, when I'm walking, working out, stuff like that. And I to touch why I ran off on a tangent. I told you I was going to be all over the place. Brandon Sanderson, I think he does fantasy really well, and he does the romance side of it, even though it's like a subplot with his characters. He does it in a that's what I found. It's like men who write romance, yeah, they're not comfortable with doing, like, the details like the women are.
They don't get it. They don't understand. I
Yeah.
actually, it's funny you bring up Brandon Sanderson. A couple years ago, I spoke in one of his classes that he taught. He teaches
Mm.
university kids how to write fantasy. So he had me come in one week, and I was
Oh,
talking
that's
to them,
awesome. I bet
and I
that was so
said
much fun.
it was a lot of fun. And I said, of fantasy books bought are bought by women. 60% of your readership is female. To your detriment, you are leaving romance out.
Yeah.
You have this, they are the bigger fan base, and you're not writing for them. Because most of the people in this class were men. There were some women, but it was primarily men. And talking about it from a romance aspect and why it needs to be included. And what I appreciate most about Brandon Sanderson is that I feel like he's always trying to learn and he's always trying to get better. And I was actually there when he did his Kickstarter. Like I heard him talk about it the day after his Kickstarter happened. I was in his class listening to it, and I'm like, this
That
is so
was such a big
fascinating.
deal.
Oh, it was
It was
so
like, "Oh,
interesting.
COVID. Oh, by the way, I've got 8 projects that I'm working
Right.
on. Here you
It was
go.
just,
Help me out
he
so I don't have to go to a publisher." Like, that's so
he was saying
crazy.
like he expected to make I think 8 million, and then the first date was like what 20 or 30 million. It was just this insane number. So he was not expecting that at all. So it was really fun to listen to him. But yeah, I think he does romance, and the kids ask me, "How do you think Brendan does romance?" I'm like, "What do you think I'm going to say in his class?" "Oh, he sucks at it." No, he does it well. But do I think it's the same as maybe a woman writer? No, but that's
Sure, yeah.
just personal opinion and what I prefer reading and what I enjoy reading. And like I told them, I said, if I wrote about a character walking into this room who leaned against the doorframe and rolled up his shirt sleeves, I said, going, oh.
Yeah.
And the guys are like, why? I'm like, you need to find out what it is that women like and what they respond to. When a guy's showing off his forearms in a historical order, it's a big deal. We enjoy it. So I said, read romance, find out what women like, find out what they're looking for, find out what appeals to them that is not what you guys think appeals to us. So it was
Yeah,
fun.
and it's even the thing, like, I love that you gave them that perspective on it, because if they do wanna be successful writers, they will have to, and if they do wanna tap into that, they are gonna have to maybe step out of their comfort zone and get
Yeah.
those details, like, they can't, and they have to write women authentically, and they have to write the relationship authentically and make it come across as organically rather than, like you said, "Oh, we just have this insta-lust, and we're gonna make it happen either way." Like, exactly, it's, like, kind of those details of the leading up to it. It's kinda, okay, where does the male gaze go? I guess it's
Yeah.
not, how do you illustrate that, build that tension by just what attracts your eye to a person? And it's, yeah, and it's tricky, but women do it. Women writers do it, and you're absolutely right where that's hilarious where they're like, "Why would that get women swooning?"
Yeah.
Okay, I imagine if it's you're just watching an attractive woman, I don't know, I can't even think of it as putting like crossing her legs or something, like sitting in a chair, whatever, like you feel like is like a little sexy move. It's like that, but maybe find a way to bring out every detail. Cause I ask, it's funny because when I talked to my cousin, like when he was reading Fourth Wing, he was saying, he's no, I get it. I just didn't need 2 pages of every time they interact with each other, they're yearning for each other. And then
That is the
I was
entire
like,
point, my friend. That is the whole.
I know, it's that's we eat that shit up. And then
Yep.
his wife was like, you know what? I sometimes wanna hear you talk about how much you yearn for me, okay? And I was like, "Yes," in those exact words, Steven. Because it's funny, I had my husband read them because he's obsessed with dragons, so I knew
Hmm.
he got me into the Aragon series, so I
Yeah.
knew he would love Fourth Wing, and the first thing he said, he was like when he, like, was ready to sit down, he's, "Okay, so you said there's some spicy parts?" I'm like, "Yep." He's like, "Alright, let's do this." He was prepared, and he didn't get
That's
bothered
funny.
by it at all. He was just yeah, he was just I was like, "What part are you at?" And then he would I think it was like an Iron Flame, it was a scene, and I was waiting for it. I was like, "What part are you at now? What part are you at now?" I was, like, waiting for his reaction to that, the throne scene, and he was just kinda, "What?"
Yeah.
Alright, that was anticlimactic. That was so I love how, like, we're just talking about it because like, it's such a difference between but you're absolutely right, it's women have so much book buying power. I think even economic power in general, like, a
Yeah.
lot women spend, like, much more money than men do. Even if it's the man's money, women are making the economic decisions, and so
Which is
absolutely.
why there was more buyers that were female rather
Yeah.
than readers because they were buying it for their kids or their husbands or whatever. Yeah.
Mhm. I know. It's yeah, and I think now that conversation is just becoming much more apparent. I think now that, like, with the age of TikTok and Bookstagram and all that, it's they're like bookstores and book publishers are definitely learning a lot in this a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And it's tricky with the trends too, because like, you probably had your deal signed a year before the book came out, and that's something that publishers worry about too. It's something that was trending now might be different a year from now.
When we submitted, my agent had editors telling her, I have 100 emails with romantasy ideas. Like, it was starting to get inundated. It was starting to get
Yeah,
overwhelmed. And I just happened to be fortunate that the editor who read it just fell in love with it and wanted it and acquired it. But I know that it's difficult because, like you said, publishers worry it comes out later. And what if trends have shifted? And what if people don't want romantasy anymore? And I can't imagine that romantasy will ever go away. I don't know that it'll always be as popular as it is now, but
right.
I don't think it'll go away. There's just too many people who love it. So,
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I think so too. You're absolutely right. It's unfortunately, it'll just people will naturally compare it. Anything that comes out from now on will compare
yeah,
it to a lot of what exists. But no, I mean, it's like I'm here for it. I'm like, and I like a lot of different genres. Like I'm a sucker for historical fiction, like suspense and thrillers. But if I had to choose one genre, I think for the rest of my life, it would probably be romantasy, just because there's a lot in there. It depends. It's just good storytelling. Like you get hooked and you can't that's why I really liked yours because it was like I remember it was being marketed as, "Okay, she's preparing for the challenge," but then the challenge is just the beginning.
yeah,
It's just the beginning. There's so much more after that, and it was just like, "Oh." Like, once I started getting into the first third of the book, I was like, "Oh, wait, okay." I was like, "Buckle in."
yeah.
And, of course, with Jason the swoony, and then because it's oh, he's just he seems to be at the right place, right time, like, all the time, and then he's just a shameless flirt, and she's just, like, frustrated because she can't deny her attraction to him, but she's
Yes.
also, "Dude, I've got bigger fish to fry." What
You are cute, but I am on a mission. Yeah,
Yeah.
they were a lot of
Yeah.
fun to write. I really enjoyed them. Yeah, I broke a lot of my own rules in writing this, like
Oh, no.
oh
What?
that they kiss right away. I am a slow
Mm.
burn girl. I get back to slow burn, right? It does happen, it goes back either way. But I am someone that I make you wait. My rom coms, it might be like 60 or 70% before they kiss for the first time, right? I really want to build that up. I love building sexual tension and chemistry. But this one I was like, they're gonna do it right out of the gate. And I wanted that because I wanted when she found out that he was her enemy, how that changes things. But so that
Yeah.
there already is an established attraction. And I actually had a friend, Charlie Holmberg. She writes fantasy. I don't know if you've read her
Oh,
stuff,
yeah,
but
I've interviewed her before too, like, years
she's
ago,
so
but
much
she's so
fun.
prolific. She comes out
Yeah,
with something all the time, yeah.
yeah. So I gave her a tribute of fire to read and get her opinion on it, and she wrote me back, and she was like, "When you did that, when you made them kiss, I was like, oh, she's killed her book. It's done.
No.
There's no tension left." And she's like, "But then you did, and it was
Yeah,
amazing." And I'm like, "Oh, so nice." But yeah, so I
there
thought
you
I did
go.
that. That was a little bit different for me. This series, my rom coms are all very sweet. This series is not. It will be
No.
open door. It's warning people now. I'm bracing for the angry emails. I know they're coming, but it definitely gets steamier and spicier as the series goes on. 'Cause I just finished book three. I just turned book three in, and that's the end of the series. Turned it in 2 days
Oh my
ago.
god, that's so
Yeah, and I'm
exciting.
I'm thrilled with the way it turned out. I'm so excited. We'll see what my editor says. She might be like, "This is terrible," and fix all of it.
Oh,
But
hey,
I'm very happy with it.
the the purpose of the first draft is to be a first draft, so you got it out there and then you
Yeah.
work with that, but
Yeah.
that's amazing. Oh god, I'm so excited. I know, because as soon as I finished this first one on the cliffhanger, I was, like, looking up, "When is she releasing the next one?" And it was like, "I gotta wait 6 months? What?"
It was originally October. You were going to have to wait a year. And then my publisher saw the response to it and the pre order numbers for book two, and they moved it up 3 months. So it's coming
Oh,
out early.
good.
It's coming out in July. And then I think book three is coming out, I want to say like in October, like of this year. Like they're
Okay.
both going to be coming out like really close together. They said, can you write really, I can write really fast. Can you write really fast and get this turned in by March 1st? And I'm like, yeah. So
Yeah.
I did.
You're like, "Alright,
Um,
got this down."
I mean, I've been thinking about this series for so long. I knew it was going to happen in book three, and it's just really easy for me to write. But that's why you have editors too,
Yeah.
because sometimes you're like, "This is great," and editors, "No, it's not." So, like in
Yeah.
book two, I added in the climactic scene, the ending of book two, I added something in pretty extensive because she's, you need to have more action here, and I'm like, she's right, and I didn't see that when I was writing it. But yeah, that's why I have editors that I love who find those things for me and help me fix
It
them.
is. It's important, because then
Yeah,
yeah, I talk to authors who they're like they write banter and they're, like, kicking their feet and they're, like, waiting for the edits to come back because they think they're hilarious, but, okay, is the editor gonna find this hilarious too? I love that. It's like a dynamic where you're like, you gotta trust them with your baby and accept constructive criticism because they just
yeah,
wanna make it better, but that's what you want too. No, it's so helpful. I totally get it. I get it from what I hear from
yeah.
speaking to so many people, yeah. So, eh, I did wanna touch on this because I know I love how this conversation is going, but I did wanna touch on this. So you with the whole premise of the story, you approach some kind of, like, darker themes, or could be, like, potential trigger warnings, stuff like that,
Yeah.
triggering content, and I imagine you haven't had to do that before in your other works.
Right. And so
Or maybe
one,
not to that extent, I don't know,
no,
yeah, so I wanna
they don't have,
explore,
yeah.
like, how you approach that, yeah.
And I didn't realize, like in book one, there are some darker things that I wish I had said and done a trigger warning. There are trigger warnings for book two and three because, it's, you don't really realize it. And I'm just like, this woman was assaulted, but it happened 1,000 years ago. But still, even then, and I should have thought of that because I don't normally write this way. So we didn't get it in time for book one, but it will be going forward to just warn people. But yeah, it is very interesting to shift to that kind of stuff. To go from, I tell people very light and frothy rom coms, stuff that's just going to be like cotton candy. You're going to be happy, you're going to have a good time. So this is very different. Like you said, there's these very dark themes, there's these very terrible things that happened. When you look back at history for women,
Mm,
like it was so
yeah.
awful. And I was just reading about, I was studying Greek and Roman warfare to write book three. And I was reading about one where I think it was like Gauls who were fighting Romans, and the Romans caught them. And so you'd have your army, and then you'd have what we call a supply train or a baggage train at the back. And that's where all your food is. Like maybe the wives and children are there. There's seamstresses and laundresses, and there's prostitutes, and there's cooks, and everything to keep this camp running, and all the supplies, and all the tents, and water, and food. And so if you can capture a supply train, you can kill the army. Like they can't keep going without it. So it's very well protected. But the fight was so bad that they killed the whole army and then came for the supply train. And the women killed themselves and killed their children rather than be taken captive because they knew what the Romans would do to them. And I'm like, that's what reality was. And
Yeah,
I mean, we still
God.
have echoes of it today with men being horrible. But do you have any idea how much worse it was 2,000 years ago? Like,
That's
women were property, they weren't
crazy.
even people.
And women just they rolled with it, unfortunately, with for lack of better words. They
If
adapted.
you saw The Last Duel, a movie that has got Adam Driver and Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, and it's about the last official duel that took place in France, and this guy rapes another man's wife. And she says he raped me. She wanted it. She was flirting with me. So the movie is told from the rapist's perspective, from the husband's perspective, and then from the woman's perspective. And they end up having a duel over whether or not this actually occurred. But her mother-in-law goes to her and says, "Why did you say anything?" She's like, "What do you mean?" She says, "You think you're the first woman this has happened to? Be quiet and
From your
basically
own
move on with your life."
mom,
And just
yeah.
saying, this is what happens. You just get up and go on with your life. And I'm like, and that was reality. That was, yeah. So I just think the history itself, and I'm having my own alternate universe, but I thought I am trying to be true to what was happening in this time period. But yeah, that was just so hard for women, and it was so dark, and it was so scary and awful. And so that's just going to unfortunately make its way in there. And I want to have
Mhm.
a female main character who's overcoming that, who is rising above what's happening and is literally going
Yeah,
to change the system.
because that's her whole thing is, like, she wants not only does she wanna save her land and save her kingdom, but she wants to
She like, the future generations of women, like, depend on it, depend on
Yeah,
the outcome,
yeah,
and it's so crazy because you're actually right, and I'm like, just hearing you talk about what things you learned about and in the movie, it's just it's so true, but eventually because so many that's we don't need to get too deep into it, but that's, like, arguably what they bank on is us just moving on, like,
yeah,
just dealing with it and moving on, and that's, like, maintaining the status quo, and that's, like,
yeah,
how I feel fortunate to live in a world where that's people are fighting back, and there's masses of people fighting back, masses of people sharing their stories, and even just, like, sharing stories and sharing, like, opinions are helpful because it's just, "No, this is fucked up."
yeah,
Like, where does our power lie? What can we do? It's I think that's the point is where women have a lot of power, but society doesn't want us to realize that.
yeah.
And I
And
think it starts yeah,
I think, talk about that a lot in this book, that
yeah,
women were good enough to send over for this tribute, but they were not worth fighting for. They were not worth protecting. They were not worth going to war over and keeping from this happening. And, excuse me, as I was reading this stuff and studying, it's in the book as well, but that you look at the Greek myths and what do all the monsters have in common? They're almost primarily all female, because it's about this male hero conquering this female monster. There's symbolism there. There's a reason it is that way, because men feared women's power and their destructive powers as their creative power. So they were subdued and kept down. And I thought everything kind of points towards that. You talk about like Amazons, because Amazons were like real. They were like Scythians, but the Greeks hated them. Oh my gosh, did they hate them? Their girls actually had a ceremony in Greece where they put aside their Amazon. We don't know what all happened in it, but we do know it occurred, so that they would go and become a good wife and a model wife and not be like the Amazons were, where they were living on their own and had their own laws and doing what they wanted and going to war. And yeah, it's just something that men have always feared. And it's just the more you study history, it's the more you find that kind of stuff out. And what's hard for me too is I love women's history so much. Like I was reading a book and it was about these two German princesses. Like the men were off to war, so these two princesses are not only defending the kingdom against invaders, but then one of the sisters goes out and starts invading the enemy on their turf. And so it was a Roman historian who's writing about it, and he literally says in the book, "Why am I writing about this? Who cares about this?" And he changes the subject to something else. I'm like, I want to know what happened to the German princesses. I want to find out. Tell me. So just that it was so rejected and we don't know. There's so much we don't know. It's so frustrating to me. But yeah, I do love women's history, but there's just so much darkness in it.
yeah, yeah, and it's just so much evidence of it's if you read between the lines, it's like this the choices in storytelling, like how you said, like why are they trying to deflect from this instance so that the fact that they don't this one woman's story and courage and journey doesn't inspire
Exactly.
other
Exactly.
women like wait we could invade other countries, we
Yep.
could say fuck the patriarchy, like what? Because it's so funny because I was like I think with the when the like going back to Game of Thrones when like the last season came out and everybody was so upset about how Daenerys' storyline came out. I was there rooting for her. I was like, burn it all down, bitch. I was like, yes. And it was like if you haven't been paying attention or if you don't like aren't into if you don't dive deeper into the meanings of it, it's just yeah, you knew this was gonna happen, unfortunately. It's not just like her family history, but it's kind of like she was such a powerhouse and she was just like came up from she against all challenges, against all obstacles. She came up and she used sex to change the game with the Dothraki. She got her dragons and she also practiced empathy. And then she of course she ran into mistakes and of course she encountered obstacles. But then like along the way I was like even girl even if you go mad and you want to burn it all I'm still right behind you. I'm
Right? Like,
still like
yeah, down King's Landing and still be queen. Like, I was one of those people. I was furious about the ending of Game of Thrones because I thought just so many things that I was waiting for. And I think this is what happens. The guys who were the showrunners were not writers. They were like nepo baby hires, and they had George R. R. Martin's source material to work from, which is why it was so good in the beginning. And then once they didn't have more, it
yeah,
all went to crap. And I
yeah.
thought, you killed Arya's arc. We didn't get to see her killing Cersei, which I was waiting for, and
I
Jamie making a
know.
terrible decision. And I thought maybe she's going to
I
kill
wanted to
Jamie and
see her
take
wear
his
more
face.
faces. I
No,
was
I thought she would kill
yeah.
Jamie and take his face, and then Cersei thinks she's
That
safe, and
was
then Arya's, nope, me. I would have loved to see that. But
Yeah.
just everybody had such a terrible ending. It was just so badly done. And that with Daenerys, yeah, I go be queen, burn everybody down. They deserve it. This is a terrible place.
Yes, yes.
No, she has to be stopped. I'm like, no, she doesn't. Let her rule. Let her burn everything down. Let's go. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm mad that
She's
she died.
breaking the wheel.
Yep.
That's what her whole thing was like,
Yep.
I'm done. Like this is gonna happen and you guys fucking suck and you deserve it. You destroyed everything that was important to me. You destroyed everything that I had gained up until now. It was just
Yep.
like, ugh, I was right. It was funny. And then it was like, oh, so many people were like writing to the showrunners to like, oh, or the HBO or whatever to like redo. I'm like, how about you take that energy and write to your representatives and be like, push for women's rights or
Yeah.
stop making a 10-year-old give birth to.
Yeah.
We don't like. It's like I'm like I'm trying to tiptoe the line here because I don't want to get too into it, but we're getting fired up. I was like, no, I'm right there with you. Yeah, exactly. It was just like, no, I was supporting her storyline, but I feel like I think even George R. R. Martin said the ending was how he planned it, but it would have taken 4 or 5 more seasons to get
Right.
there. It
And
was like they, yeah,
rushed it, and so it doesn't feel real. It
yeah,
doesn't feel like what she would actually do. I'm like, this is not the person I know. This is not a compassionate, loving leader who cares about everybody. That she doesn't do this in 5 minutes, which is what you've done. You've a completely different person, and I didn't like it. I actually thought, I was watching it, I thought Jon Snow would die, and that she would be pregnant, and that's who would rule next. Was this baby? But
yeah.
I thought when she
That
died, I'm
would have
like, are you
made
kidding me?
sense.
Yeah, I thought I was
And then he's
shocked.
Spanish. It was like, okay, no spoiler warnings. It's what, I don't know, been 8 years since this show ended.
They're
And
supposed to
then
do like
it's like
a
still,
sequel to that. It's like we're talking about him getting his own show up in the
oh
north.
yeah, like it's
Yeah,
called Snow or something like The
yeah,
King Beyond the Wall or whatever, which I'm like, it's like the House of the Dragon too. It's like we're still gonna watch it.
yeah. We are.
In our house, we call it Hot D because it's like HOTD, House
Yeah,
of the Dragon. So it's like
funny.
that toxic ex you keep going back to. You're still curious about the world. There's something about it where you're just gonna keep bringing you back. But yeah, it's just it brings us back to storytelling. It's just we have sympathy for these characters, but it's you people who are mad are telling on themselves. You see, okay, I know what kind of person you are if you're like you don't get it. It was like people naming their kids after Daenerys. It's like, that was a horrible decision.
I
That's
know.
not the
Can you
show's
imagine?
fault. That's not the show's fault.
Daenerys and Khaleesi, I think, got to be real popular too as a baby name.
I know, right? I would name I maybe I'd name my dog Khaleesi, but that's
Yeah,
about it.
right.
We named our dog Arya because Arya was my favorite.
Arya, I love
I
Arya.
love her.
I
She's
hated
my
her ending.
favorite.
I loved
I
her.
know.
I mean, when
She's a
she,
power. I love her so much.
yeah, I want to write a character like her just because I love her so much. Like she's just amazing, and I'm so mad that she did not get the ending that I think she should have had.
It
I'm
was
gonna
like,
go
oh,
stay alive.
she got too much glory and ending the war and killing the dude. God, what did they call him? The Ice King? I don't even know. I
That
forget.
one of the greatest moments I think in TV history. I watched a video of these guys like in Norway or something watching it at a bar, and how they all went, and then dead silence, and then they'll start cheering. I'm like, oh, I was the same way. I cheered. I was so excited. I'm like, how can you have these great moments and then just completely fumble the ending?
No, I just remember we would have my friends and I we would have like kind of like group watch parties. We're like, okay, we're going to your house today. We're going to my house next week. And then when that happened, I just remember it was like no words. We were just like all grabbing each other. Just like wait, like it
Yeah,
was it's stuff like that where it's just so much. It's the like community again, the community where it's just like a
yeah.
collective. Like I'm right there with you. I love watching like the global reactions to it because it's just. And then some people are just like with the memes and everything. They're so much more clever than I could ever be. So I'm
Right.
like,
And it makes it fun when something like Fourth Wing hits because then it's like
yeah,
this collective thing that you're a part of and that you know what the jokes are about and you get it. And I think that's fun. I wish it happened more often. I wish we found more things that we would
yeah.
all love so that we could just all hang out and talk about them because I just
I
think it's so
know
much
where I
fun and
like
they're
I
so
could
fun.
finally send memes. I could finally send memes to my husband. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, no, you get it now. I did
This
get
will
him
make
to start.
sense.
I know I did to get him to start Throne of Glass, and
Hmm.
it took him a long time because I had him start with Assassin's Blade, and I know how controversial this is, but I figured like the type of reader he is because I read Assassin's Blade after Crown of Midnight, so I read it third, and I was gonna read it after Heir of Fire, but I was like. You know what? After hearing more of the backstory in Crown of Midnight, I was like, no, I want to go back. I want to read the prequel, and I'm glad I did it that way. But I'm like, I think that because it's like the nature of you hear her references referencing things that happened in her past. So then you're gonna like progress, and then you're gonna have to like backwards and then reconnect to the timeline. So just the kind of reader that I figured he was, that I knew he was, I suggested Assassin's Blade first. So it's just backstory. It's just backstory. It's just hard to get through. But I was waiting for him to finish because I was like, he was like, oh, like because of Sam, because I was like, that's the gut punch. That's
Yeah.
the gut punch. And I was waiting for him to get to it. Once he got to it, he was like he finished it, and like he stayed up too late finishing it. Once he got to that part, he stayed up too late finishing it. And he was like, "I'm ready for the next one." I was like, "Yes." I thought he was gonna be there for the rest of the books, but he's not. So now I want to know. I was like,
Yeah.
"That's what I told you." So like all this time, he was like, "Why? It's so hard to get through." And I was like, now he's okay. I could see why you had me do that. And so now he still has to start Crown of Midnight, but he went through Throne of Glass like that. So I love that because I'm like, okay, what memes can I send to him? What's same with Fourth Wing and now with Throne of
Yeah.
Glass. So I'm like, what's safe to send to him, or if something makes me laugh and I can show him, because it's like whatever. Like otherwise, you send your friends memes, right?
Yeah.
It's just so like in the moment. But no, I'm right there with you where I'm like, it's just. Yeah, it's a community and it's an inside joke, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I do want to tackle some of these questions. What
Okay.
were the most challenging parts to write? What were the most enjoyable parts to write?
The most challenging were the action scenes. It's very
Mm,
interesting. It's very, I think, akin to love scenes, to be honest, that there's a lot of structuring that goes on there and the way that you work it. And it doesn't matter how well I explain it, you're probably not going to see it in your head the way that I'm imagining the fight going. So you just have to do your best. And again, the fight needs to be about more than the fight. It needs to be about how is this moving the story along? What's happening? Why is this important? How is she feeling? What's going on? So that was definitely the most challenging. I think the most fun, I would probably say all of her scenes with Jason, just because I had so much fun writing them that it was just such a blast. And he's not as much in this book as he is in two. He's a much bigger part in two. Two is
yeah,
much more romance
I
heavy
would
one
hope
is.
so.
Yeah.
Like she has no choice
Yeah.
but to be in the situation she's
Yeah.
in.
So two is more romance heavy than one. But yeah, I enjoyed that the most, I think, writing them.
I think I could tell that you had fun with that because you, compared to like your like, I think on your website you said, "Oh, just a heads up, this book is steamier than my other books," because I appreciate that because I think it's a good idea to prepare readers who know your work, to prepare them for, okay, just so you know, this is going to be a little bit different than what what I've done in the past.
Yeah. And there's readers who don't care, who read whatever. They read
Yeah.
sweet to very explicit. And there's readers who are like, I will not read anything past like hand holding. So I have to write what you want to
First
write.
base,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
You just write what you want to write, what you're comfortable with, what you feel like works for you, and just hope that the readers find you.
Yeah, or that they're giving you a shot. Because honestly, even then, he was like, you said it was a little steamier. When I read it, I was just like, I want more. I was like, because a lot of it was like they're getting there, and then and it's detailed, but then it's like they don't really go past a certain point, and
Yeah.
I think like I can tell because just from what I know from you as a writer, I think I could tell that you were like tiptoeing into that deeper end of
Yeah. Definitely.
yeah,
And definitely more in two and three. So yeah. It's
yay.
quite a big change for me. Because yeah, I read a fantasy book once where she was like a paid for bride and it was like and the whole point is they have to consummate this marriage and she's supposed to get pregnant to unite the kingdoms, but he won't touch her. And so they're consummating is like the most important thing in the book, and then it was done off the page. I flipped the page and I said, "Did they do it? I don't understand
Yeah.
what's happening." I thought you can't have something be that important and not have it. It's just I don't know. I think it's just mean. And for my characters,
No, you're
it's
absolutely right. I would also be pissed off.
yeah.
I'd
I
also be
thought
like, wait a
that
second.
in A Tribute of Fire that the physicality is so important for a reason. It's so important that I thought I cannot leave this off. It cannot be closed door.
Yeah.
It's what I'm comfortable with. It's not super explicit, but it is definitely. My agent said you're fine because I'm like, let's appeal to a general readership. Is it enough? And she's like, yep. So I think we're good.
And it's just it is no, yeah, it's good for you to like tiptoe because you're like, I don't want to lose readers, but then you're like, you also want to, you have to be authentic because it's
Yeah,
just, if it's part of the story and if
yeah,
it's part of their love story, some stuff like that is it's important to have it like on the page, and like
yeah,
how they're hesitating or they're like exploring, and it's just there's something to be said about how I mentioned earlier, like the spectrum of intimacy. And it's, you could do closed door, you could do open door, and there's a spectrum on open door. It's just you can lead up to a certain spot and then fade to black, and you don't have to go You don't have to go concept to completion. It's
Yeah.
it's just I for one, I personally am like, if I have a romance, I would like some spice.
Yeah.
But then I understand it's like some people just want fluffy. They like the story. They like the
Yep.
feel good and they don't need that. But it's if you're telling something a little bit deeper, how they can't deny their attraction to each other. Like they can't help it and there's chemistry there. You have to show that. You have to
Yeah.
show that. How you said
Yeah.
with the book you were reading, it's wait, that was a whole point, and then they don't show it. And it's, yeah, that absolutely that would be disappointing. And
Yeah.
it's then there's also something to be said about if I'm reading a romance book, it's if there's not a plot, if it's just mostly just like an excuse to put a bunch of sex scenes in it, I'm not about that. I'm
Yeah.
like, where's the point? It's but some people, it's
It's
no,
their
that's what they
favorite
need
thing.
sometimes.
Yep.
That's what they need, and that's fine. That's fine. It's
But
just
that
like
is,
finding. I'm not about to shame anybody who's you just want to read sex scenes. No, that's you do you, boo boo. I
right.
don't. For me, it's I like the middle ground, and I'm not gonna shy away if it's 4 chili peppers or whatever. I'm like, okay, is there a plot here? Because I'm just like, then I'm gonna find out. It's
Yeah.
like,
That's the thing I think
absolutely.
I love most about romance is that really and truly you can find what you want, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you prefer. Sometimes you want closed doors, sometimes you're like, I want it really steamy. Like people just different moods for different things. And I love that indie publishing made that possible and that you really can go out there.
Yeah.
Whatever your fancy is, whatever you want to read, it exists. I promise you.
Yeah.
So
Oh, 100%, 100%. Like I have my and there's also different types of romance. It's all fluffy or it's like dark romance. I don't think dark romance is my thing,
not me either.
but yeah, I just one of my best friends, she who I've known since like high school. I've known her for 20 years, and she was like, "Megan, I'm gonna become an author. I'm gonna become a published author this year." I'm like, "Yeah, fucking yeah, go. I'm here for you." And I read her books, and I bought the physical copies of her books, even though I wouldn't if I saw her book on the shelf, I wouldn't go for it. But
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna support my friend. And then she asked me to be a beta reader to just help with consistency and just give her feedback and stuff. And a lot of the feedback that I gave her, she was like, I address that in later books. So I'm like, okay, cool. But at the same time, I was like, it was yeah, if it wasn't my friend, I don't know if I would have originally go for it. Like I
Yeah.
would have but it's just like it's like I gave it a shot and I'm like supporting her and I'm gonna find the positives and I'm gonna also be constructive if she needs me to be constructive. But yeah, that's just an example of like different strokes, right?
Yeah.
It's like some women they love that the red flags that the what would be red flags in real life.
Yeah.
Like or mafia or stalking or whatever. I'm like,
Yeah. If you like it, go for it. But
yep.
yeah, I'm with you. I can't do dark romance. It just
No.
it's too much for me.
Nah. Okay, what advice I'm gonna throw this at you again. What advice would you give to Leah? What advice would you give to Jason?
To Leah, the advice I would give her is to stop being so angry. She's very angry for a long time. I had to tone her down actually because she's so mad in book 2. And my editor, she's too mad. And I'm like, it's the night of
Is
the
she
wedding. Yeah, she's
though?
still
Like
mad.
she's
And for
appropriately mad.
Jason,
I
I
would
would say
follow
to,
her. I would follow her to war.
yeah, I would say for Jason to be more honest, which she has a problem with as well.
Understandably.
Yeah.
Like, dude. Although I get the impression, 'cause I haven't coming from someone who hasn't read number 2 yet, I get the impression that he has no choice but to be secretive. Like he has to be. But then if I'm gonna find out that he didn't have to be secretive, then yeah, I'm gonna have a problem with him because it's just like I know
So,
you're like
well,
trying to be.
I know I'm not
Yeah,
gonna say anything, but yeah.
I'm gonna like record your facial expressions and be like, seeing if I could get
What's she
anything out
showing?
of it. You're like, no, but this is only audio. But yeah, so exactly. So I'm very interested in your advice for them. This is also another exploratory question. Do you have any book recommendations? Do you read books to unwind? Like, how do you pull yourself away, or what do you read to just, what would you recommend to what you're reading right now that you love?
What did I just read? I don't read while I'm writing. I'm
Okay,
very worried about
that's probably
lifting
safe.
stuff. Yeah, like my brain remembers things, and I'm like, this is so brilliant. And someone's like, yeah, this comes from this book or something. And I'm like, oh no. But yeah, I just unintentionally, so you try to be careful. But like when I was writing rom-coms, I was reading like all fantasy and romantasy because it was like so different. And now what do I do? Now that I'm writing in it, but I'm still reading it. I'm actually just started Onyx Storm because it came out while I was writing, so I couldn't read it. The way that I have to avoid social media, I can't
Yeah,
even tell you.
I imagine
Um,
that was really hard.
it's
Yeah.
I'm like just started that one. And the Hurricane Wars, I've been enjoying that one. The book 2 came out not too long ago. I really enjoyed book 2. I think I enjoyed 2 more than I did 1. What I've been reading is my own book because I'm trying to write book 3 and I keep going back and forth and looking at what happened here and what happened because I don't remember. I'm like literally looking stuff up. But yeah, a lot of historicals. I just went through the Cruel Prince series.
That's on my reading list. Yeah.
That's excellent. It's romantasy light because it's a YA, but it's definitely
Okay.
there and it's really good. It's like history books, like Mongol Queens. I just picked that one up. I'm very excited to start that one. So I have a lot of
I
historical
love
books
how
that
you're
people don't
just
like.
like you're unapologetic about like your
I'm
nerd
such a
side.
nerd. So yeah, but like these historical books, I was reading about a Mongolian princess, and I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing. This is a fantasy character. So I'm like, I need to read more about her. So I bought
There
books.
you
But yeah,
go. That's
yeah.
your next
So
fantasy
yeah,
romantasy series. Yeah. Speaking of which, hopping off of that, okay, I don't want to get you in trouble, but what can readers expect from the sequel?
I would say in book two, like I said earlier, you can expect the romance is really going to heat up. It's going to be much more you're going to be in that story most of the time. There's still the fantasy stuff happening. There's still the other politics and things going on, but the romance really takes front and center in book two.
I love that because they were like some of the moments they were so funny. They were so funny how he was like helping her, but then she was also like, "Stop it!" Like she appreciated it, but at least from what I remember, like she appreciated his help, but she hated that she was falling under his spell. She was like,
Yep.
and of course and then towards the end, without giving too much away, she was like, it's just like an elongated sigh. It
Yeah.
was just like a sigh, or like different sighs, where she was like, WTF. And then she was like, if I want things to go as least harmful as possible, kind of thing. He knew obviously, he knew who she was. That adds to the complication. I'm right there with you, Leah. I get it. I'm like, fuck this dude.
Yeah. She's not happy.
But then he is unfortunately the situation that is it's instrumental. I'm like, I know you can't help sometimes if you wrote the story very well, where I could like put myself in her position, and I'm like, I would be just as pissed off, and I don't know what I would do, but she's kind of like a character wise, she's a little selfless, or she's like worried about other people,
Yeah.
and she's also grown, like she's built connections with what are the sisters in the
Yeah.
temple, and so I don't want to be the cause of, because otherwise they're hunkering down, they're ready to like
Yeah.
whatever. But then she comes and she's, unfortunately, I am the person that can rectify the situation.
Yeah. I will
And
tell
then
you
just with
in book two, he calls her selfish in a fight, and it infuriates her because there's a lot of things you can say about me, but selfish is not one of them. But that's how he's perceiving her going into it.
just with the dreams, it was just like, once he said it, I was like, ooh, that's gonna come up like within 10 pages. I was
Yeah.
like, I was waiting for it, and I was just like, oh my god. Yeah, and I know there's a bunch of Easter eggs that were like, I'm like just so excited to hopefully they come to fruition in the rest of the series, and I'm like, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for it. Yeah. Well done.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad that this series ended up like being so instrumental and successful for you, something that was so important to you. That's why I said earlier there was like the best arc, happy ending, because it's a good series that got you out of your situation. I
Yeah.
love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Okay, Sariah Wilson, where can we find you online and on social media?
SariahWilson.com is my website, and I think on Instagram and TikTok I'm Sariah Wilson author. You can find me there.
Sariah with an H.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that name. It's like Sariah. I love that name. Sariah Wilson, A Tribute of Fire. That book is available now. The next book is available in July. Like you said, we can look forward to find the rest of the series this year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yes. Yes. And then if you want to come back and chat about the other books or anything else down the line, if you return to rom-coms, feel free
Okay.
to come back. I'd love to chat with you again.
I will do that. Perfect.
And there you go. That was Sariah Wilson talking about A Tribute of Fire. That book is available now. Check out the show notes where you can find links to purchase the book or where to find Sariah online and on social media. While you're at it, make sure to follow and subscribe to Cantina Book Club online on social media on YouTube so that you guys don't miss a beat, and where you can keep up with my book reviews and author interviews, all that good stuff. Rate, review, subscribe. If you are finding a book that you like, go ahead and hop on it over to Amazon and Goodreads. Leave them a rating and a review, and it really does help the authors out. And as always, thank you guys so much for listening.